Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience.
If you find other people that have big goals and you won't feel as crazy, you'll be motivated.
Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience. Today we have a very special guest. He is a professional MMA fighter originally from St. Charles, Missouri. He has a professional record of 7-3, and he currently trains out of Las Vegas, Nevada at Xtreme Couture. He has a fight coming up that's going to be on UFC Fight Pass on June 21st versus Alex Morgan. So I'm super excited to talk to him about that. So let's go ahead and bring on Josh Augustine. I'm excited for this fight you've got coming up. It looks like you've got a pretty game opponent. He's 14-6, and they're going to be streaming it on Fight Pass, and it's going to be in Canada, right?
Yeah, June 21st, Montreal, Quebec, Canada, in his hometown. And yeah, he's 14-6, number one guy in Canada, number one guy outside of the UFC right now.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's I'm looking forward to the challenge, looking forward to the matchup.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, well, some of your fights, it's hard to judge because, like, you had the fight with Niamov, and he's in the UFC now. So it's like some of your fights, you didn't realize who the opponent was until later. But this, I would say, has got to be probably one of your biggest fights you've ever had, especially with him being number one in Canada.
Yeah, I don't think he's the toughest opponent I've had.
Yeah.
I think Niamov is probably the best opponent skill-wise
I'd agree.
that I've fought and will still be after this fight. I do think that he is very skilled, though. You know, he is one of the better guys that I've fought. But all of the big fights that I've had in my career have all been on short notice, or
Right.
have all been, you know, with me facing lots of circumstances. So this is the first fight that I've had to prepare for a fight like this, and have a whole camp for a fight like this. And now that I'm with Xtreme Couture, I have all the bodies and all the coaching as well. So I'm feeling really confident going into this fight. And I'm looking forward to facing that challenge and going at those hurdles full speed. You know, like with a fight like this, it's obviously going to be highly competitive, and it's going to have, you know, adversity in it for both of us. And so I'm just looking forward to hitting that adversity and dealing with it, and you know, showing myself and the UFC that I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you now have 10 pro fights under your belt, so you're at that level where, you know, you are ready for the UFC. And, you know, especially with your last performance, I mean, I know you didn't get a finish, but it was a super dominant performance. So I think that, you know, this is a great time for you to be getting this kind of opportunity. And speaking of, you know, your training at Xtreme, I saw you were training with Anthony Njokuani, and I've watched some of his fights. He's extremely talented. Tell me a little bit about training with him, and then who are some other training partners that you brought into this camp?
Yeah, Anthony is such an asset. I grew up watching him whenever I was in high school and middle school, you know, just a fan watching WEC days and the early UFC days whenever some of those guys came over. And I was just always a big fan of Anthony, you know, so he's got his own gym out here. He comes over and spars over at Xtreme, and him and I have grown to have a little bit of a relationship, and he's been super helpful with this camp.
Nice.
And you know, whenever I look at the matchup for this fight, that's the type of guy that I need to be going with as much as possible, because I think Anthony's just overall better. But he is like Muay Thai based, and it's and he's even going to be bigger than Alex. Now Anthony's fighting at 170 in game bred, so
Right.
Frame wise, he's similar though to Alex, about the same reach and height. I think he's a little bit taller, but you know, regardless, it's an unbelievable look. It's a really high level look, and you know, super grateful to have him, and like Julian Rose is another really good dude that I've been working with. You know, obviously he's had a ton of success in the UFC, and especially as of late, and you know, working with him, you know, Biagio, Ali Walsh over in the PFL, and then Arthur Duflo. He's another guy who's coming up in the regional circuit. You know, I just have so many guys that I'm able to get very similar looks of Alex. I think like Biagio and Arthur can really imitate him very, very well. And like Anthony's kind of like one of the, and Julian are both kind of those guys that are like better than him that I get to kind of, really push myself with and make myself grow to be not only ready for that moment, but overly prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Anthony's kickboxing is insane. His last fight was actually a really good performance too, the fight with Brandon Jenkins. And Brandon's just super tough. So it's like he's almost impossible to finish. So it's like, yeah, there were so many times I thought that fight was going to be over. And yeah, he's so technical. Like his movement is so clean. And yeah, that's a hell of a training partner to have for sure. So is this guy that you're fighting, is he more of like a kickboxer?
He was a Muay Thai guy. He did
Okay.
stadium fights in Thailand before.
Oh, wow.
So he's mostly like a Muay Thai guy, and all of his losses are by submission, and I think half of his wins are by knockout or TKO. So he's um, and he doesn't have any submission wins. So he's definitely more of a stand up guy. It seems like he trains at TriStar though with
Yeah.
Frost and George and Rory and all those guys. So I'm sure he's fairly well rounded and has grappling skills as well. But I mean, I'm just working with the best people. I have like Andy Varela is another good person I've been training with, and Adam Frank. Like some of these guys over at 10th Planet are just insane with their jiu-jitsu, and being able to grapple with guys like that, on a daily basis, and dealing with amazing strikers like Anthony and Jaquani. I don't think he's going to give me anything that I've never seen before. So that's why I say
Right.
I'm just looking forward to going out there and competing, and I'm going to find the hole. I'm gonna find the opening, and I've shown it in my record. I look for finishes, and I'm looking for that finish in this fight. And when you look at some of his other losses, I think that he falls right into my game. I think he falls right into my strengths, even though, I think on Tapology they have it like 92% of people are saying Morgan will win. And I understand that. He has twice as many fights. Like, I get it. It's like, it's,
Yeah.
I'd probably pick him too if I didn't know. But, like, when I actually look at the matchup itself, I think that a few of his losses show me that it could be a really good night for me. Could be a really, really amazing night for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like too, of course, there you see some fighters that they get like, easier matchups and they go and beat up these guys that are like, obviously not on their level. But I feel like it's better to do what you're doing and fight guys that are a challenge and you are the underdog, because it gets you more motivated. Like, because then if you win, it's like, yeah, look what I just did. Like, I beat this guy that everybody thought I wasn't going to beat. And then, then it gives you even more confidence going into your next one. So I think that's good. I think it's good to have a good challenge in front of you. It's something that wakes you up in the morning. But I don't know. I think that, what do you think about fighting in Canada? So, like, he's the guy in Canada. Like, obviously, his fans are all going to be there. Like, his supporters are all going to be there. And, you're, like, on enemy territory. How do you feel going into that? Do you like that? Or do you prefer fighting at home?
I mean, there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah.
I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be
Yeah.
fun to fall into the bad guy role. And obviously going to Montreal, it's like the one European city or European like architecturally like based city in Canada. So that'll be very fun to like go and gain a new experience and see a
Yeah.
different part of the world that I've never seen before. And then obviously, like I said, go in there and kind of play that bad guy role and just have fun with it. And the fans and like who they're cheering for, whether it's me or him, doesn't really matter that much at the end of the day whenever it comes down to the fight. But it'll be fun. It'll be fun to play into that, and like you said, I'm just looking forward to the challenge of it all. Like, it's just gonna be. I got a few fun ideas for weigh-ins outfits and fight day outfits and stuff like that, and you know
Yeah, have fun with it.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. You know, like, I mean, you got to think about, like, if the United States and Canada went to war, like, come on, is it even really a question? You know, like, it's really not, right?
Yeah, just
Like, what
ask
are they
Sean
gonna do?
Strickland what he thinks about that. I'd
Yeah,
like to hear his response.
I don't want to. I don't think that I have the notoriety to go full Sean Strickland because I don't know if they'll let me in. But
Yeah, that was so funny.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe when I saw that. I was like, oh god, Sean Strickland's gonna be fighting in Canada. I'm like, this is gonna be wild.
Yeah,
it was funny
hilarious.
though, so funny. She's completely unhinged. I love it. You gotta love
Well,
Sean. You gotta love it. The
yeah,
realness.
that's definitely him, unhinged.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and he's about to fight this weekend. So he's about to fight Costa. What do you think about that
Yeah,
matchup?
he fights Paulo Costa on Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good matchup for him, honestly, because Paulo swings a little wild and stuff, and Sean's pretty tight. And you actually did a really cool breakdown of their percentages of being hit and not being hit, like they're per minute. And you know, stats don't lie generally. And now
Yeah.
Costa is very powerful, like you said, that his likelihood to win is early catching Sean.
Yes.
But yeah, I don't know. Sean's pretty good in the pocket, so.
Sean's defense is just so good. I mean, he got caught, you know, a few times, and he got caught by Pereira. That was probably the worst one. But overall, I mean, he usually blocks and parries almost everything that he gets thrown at him. So even if you hit him, like, you're not really hitting him clean. You're just kind of, like, grazing him. So, yeah.
And a knockout to Pereira is really not, like...
Yeah, I mean, Pereira is now champion in light heavyweight and just beat a former light heavyweight champion. So it's like...
Right.
Kind of hard to really judge him for
Yeah,
that.
knock that. Yeah.
Because even like he said before, you know, if you go point to point with Alex, like he'll win. You know, he will.
Yeah.
Because Alex, you know, his style is not really like a point style. But if he lands that left hook, like, yeah, you're probably going to go down because it's just like an atomic bomb in his hand. It's crazy. It's unreal.
Yeah, he's definitely perfected that technique, and he seems to have like that crazy one-touch power. So
yeah, I guess it's like a combination of his timing and just how much power he has and the torque that he's able to generate.
Yeah, I mean, he was knocking people out with that shot and back in glory days with the bigger kickboxing gloves. So
yeah,
you know, of course with the 4 ounces, like, of course it's gonna land.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I'm a fan of Costa and Sean probably equally, but what I admire about Sean is just his fighting style. Because I love boxing, and you know that I've been training boxing for a little while now, but like the way that he has applied it to MMA, I've never really seen anybody do it before. And maybe like Clay Collard, I feel like he's applied boxing pretty well too, but as far as in the UFC right now, I think Sean has done it the best in my opinion. I mean, him and Holloway I would say are probably the 2 best boxers right now in the UFC in my opinion. Just
Poirier's
because of like
some good boxing
Poirier too. I would put Poirier in the top 3 as well. Yeah, Poirier's got good boxing, but the defense side of it is what really fascinates me about Sean's style. And just how he's able to basically use a style that you wouldn't think would work in MMA. Like, you wouldn't think a Philly shell would work in MMA. You wouldn't think that...
Right, with the little gloves that should slip through, you would think.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy, but I really like watching it because it's super interesting and just... I feel like that style works really well for longevity, too. And that's why he's able to fight in so many 5-round fights because, you know, he's not using a ton of output. He's not, you know, trying to take you down every 5 minutes. He's not trying to, you know, throw a bunch of spinning back kicks, which is, you know, that's the thing with Costa and this being a 5-round fight. You know, who's going to have the better energy management? It's probably going to be Sean. So, yeah, it's super interesting. But yeah, getting back to, well, I guess we could tie that into Sean, but so training at Xtreme. So this is going to be what, your 3rd time fighting under Xtreme? Or I
Yeah,
guess this is
technically my
like your
third, but I
second
really
actual camp.
that's what I say. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my third fight since I've been out here in Vegas, but it's kind of like my second full camp here at Extreme.
Right.
So yeah, this camp has been the best camp I've had by far, in my entire career. Like now sitting at 3 weeks from Friday, we had a couple more weeks of really hard push before we start like dialing in just on the weight, but like at this point, I'm just thinking about tactics and techniques that are going to work perfectly in this fight. Like I'm not concerned about my cardio or like physically, I feel amazing. Um, Technically, I feel really really solid. I've have the best partners I could ask for. Like I said earlier, the best coaches that are fine tuning the details. So I know I'm going to be on my game going in there, and I just want to, have a few like specific things that I'm working on to find home that I think are really going to work. So it's been a really cool experience being able to have like a full, really great camp and trying to like emulate somebody like him.
Yeah. Yeah, because even the last one, you had what, like an opponent change, I think, and you had like the
Yeah, I
weight
only had like
change.
4 weeks of that kid. Yeah, and then we had a
Yeah.
weight change, and his style was kind of unorthodox, and it
Yes.
was like I had to go up a weight class because we were trying to do 45, and it was just like,
Yeah.
you kind of got to do what you got to do at the regional circuit. But
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
yeah, it was all right though. It was a good experience to get out there and get a full
Yeah.
15 minutes because with the fight before that, I kind of gassed out, like trying to take the dude's head off, like kind of what you were saying, like about Costa. Like I was really trying. Had a really heavy output and was just trying to put him away. Uh, because I know, everyone knows finishes get you to the UFC, and I was starting to get into that hype train, and I had so much going on in my personal life. Really wanted to like go out there and prove a point, but um, that isn't what this game is. It's not an emotional game. It's not about proving a point. You got to be precise. Everything's got to be perfect. There's no mistakes to be made, and you got to be able to go for those full 15 minutes. So that was really cool. Going out there and getting those 15 minutes. Obviously, it looks great on your record to have all finishes or whatever, but to go out there and beat up a guy weight class bigger and just kind of dominate, like you said, and spend 15 minutes in the cage and know that I could have probably just kept going another 10 at least. Um, it feels good to know that is there. Like that's in my back pocket. Like it could just be a grimy fight where I'm just taking him down and beating him up, and I'll get through the 15 minutes if need be. Um, but this fight is very interesting because I think for me to get him out of there, it's going to take a little more heavy output early in the fight. And I think that could be something that gets the job done. So it's going to be a delicate balance of being smart, when I'm going, how I'm going. But um, it has to be a fight. Like for me, it has to be a fight. For him, he wants to sit there and play like the tie, tit for tat game, back and forth game. I have to really make it a fight and use my athleticism and use my speed and my reach and really just beat him up and just hurt him.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what
Is
I'm
this
gonna
a
be doing.
3-round fight?
This is a 3 round fight.
3 rounds. Okay. Is it the main
Yeah,
event?
which I think yeah, main event,
Nice.
3 rounder. I think that leans in my direction. I think 5 rounds later, and a lot of his finishes come later in fights. So
Okay, that makes sense.
yeah, I think that would lean in his direction. But they wanted to do 3, so we're doing 3.
Nice. And it's at 145, right?
145.
How does it feel to be finally back in your weight class?
Uh, it's all right. I feel skinny, that's for sure. I definitely feel skinny, but yeah, that's one thing I'm looking forward to is just kind of feeling that power again at 145 because, like, obviously I've dropped people at 55 and 70 and stuff like that, but at 45 it's just kind of different. Like whenever you just touch people and they just go away. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that feels too, and that's another factor in this fight as well. He's going to be looking to play that tit for tat game that could really open things up for me and allow me to get a really stunning knockout.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and especially after that, I think they just dropped that article not too long ago, where they're talking about like what the UFC is looking for, and and for a while, I had no idea really what they were looking for, because you see some of these guys that get signed, and you're like, okay, and then and then they say they want all finishes, but then they sign people that don't have finishes, and then you're like, okay, but then they came out with this article, so I guess now what they are looking for are finishers, and they're looking for not only finishers though, but also people like with some swag, like people with some entertaining, like people that have personality. So I feel like if you have not only you're getting finishes, but you also have all the other stuff on top of it, then that just puts you even higher up in the line for who they're going to want to sign. So,
well, on top of that, I'm here in Vegas as well, and
yeah.
I don't. It's not that I don't mind doing the media. I actually enjoy doing it, and I know that it's a part of the job, and like some
Yeah.
guys want opportunities but don't know how to get them, and you have to really check off every single box, and those opportunities might not even come tomorrow, they might not come the next day, but if you keep plugging away, then things start to fall into place, just like it does with training and creating opportunities for fights and stuff. So or just with anything in general. So for me, I'm just I'm ready to check all those boxes. I'm ready to do whatever it takes to not only get to that next level and make a little bit of money, but to like really become a star. So, I'm trying to do all the things, but number one thing, it all comes from winning. And I'm lucky that my style kind of fits into that mold of things they like, just based off of results. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. This fight has to be a very smart approach, and I can't really think too much about that because he's a lights out striker. You can't um, put too much of that stuff into your energy, your game plan, or anything like that. I got to be really effective and calculated with my movements and what I'm doing, and that's what I'm working on every day. So it's going to be a hell of a challenge. It's going to be a hell of a test, but um, I really think that this is going to be this could be a really like a breakout fight for me. This could be that fight that gets me signed, and also is just a performance that um, I'll never forget. It'll open up my mind to things and my own capabilities, and I think that it'll open up other people's eyes too, of kind of where I'm at, and how I'm able to deal with a guy like this, number one guy outside of the UFC right now.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And I would agree. I think if you, beat this guy, if you get a finish, definitely if you get a finish, you should be in the UFC. I don't think there's any argument about that. I think, yeah, maybe it's a decision, okay, whatever, but a finish against that guy, yeah, I would I would be shocked if they didn't at least get you on Contender Series or UFC. So, now going into that, what do you think about the current state of the 145 division in the UFC right now?
It's fun. It's a lot of fun, especially that top 10, top 15 is a lot of fun right now. It's one of the most competitive divisions. Really, if you go from 135 to 170, it's just insane right now in the UFC, especially in the top 15. It's just the who's who. Um, but even outside of that, I think there's so many fun matchups. There's so many good matchups, and I see a lot of guys, from out here training in Vegas. I see a lot of guys in the UFC at that breaking through to the top 15 level guys, just getting signed, just getting cut, and I think I'm gonna do so well whenever I do get signed. I think there's a lot of matchups that I know that I can call for that I'll smoke them, and it's gonna look amazing. And I can definitely see a clear path to the top 15 and the top 10. Whenever you get there, those are dogfights. Those are
Yeah.
those are some real challenges. So um, that's almost like a whole other stage in your career, I feel like. But for now, I feel like I'm one of the top guys. I feel like I'm one of the top guys that's gonna be next in line to start heading towards that. Um, but yeah, I think 145 has a ton of fun matchups in there, especially the top 15.
Yeah, definitely. And Yeah, there's a lot of movement right now in the division. There's some new faces coming in the top 15. There's some that are kind of on their way out, and it's like you said, it's a super competitive division. So like 1 minute somebody's on top, and then the next minute they're getting knocked out. So it's like it's crazy. And yeah, but who do you think is, like, obviously you have the champion Topuria, but who do you think is the best featherweight right now?
Personally, I think Max Holloway is the best featherweight in the world right now.
I agree.
I think Max is number one, and I think he'll beat Topuria. Personally,
I agree.
And I thought that he won at least one of those fights with Volk.
I did too.
Those are super close fights. Those are super hard to judge fights. So
yeah,
it's tough to say. But those three are obviously I feel at the top of the heap. And then Ortega's looked amazing in his last fight. So he's kind of in that discussion now. His striking looks much more well rounded than it did whenever he first fought Holloway. So that that makes that very interesting. I don't want to say Yair's been exposed, but it looks like, if you can grapple pretty well, if you have solid jiu-jitsu, solid stand-up, and you're competent enough on the feet to not just get smoked by him, then he's beatable. And I think that's also true with Giga.
Yes.
Giga Chikadis. And, Josh Emmett can be outboxed for sure. But all those guys make super fun fights.
Yes.
All those guys are banger fights, and there's a lot of ways to mix and match those guys. And then you got Edson Barboza. I think he's another guy that unfortunately, I don't think he'll reach the championship level, but he'll be one of those very exciting, very, very exciting guys.
Oh, yeah.
And then obviously Murphy, who got the W over him. He's young, up and coming, undefeated. So he's
really good.
Yeah, and then you got guys like Bryce Mitchell. He's I don't know how the fuck he got there, to be honest. He's tough as hell, though, huh? Like, he's fucking... Yeah, I don't know. I guess he just got that inbred Arkansas strength, or something. I'm not really sure. Because he doesn't really look very technical if you watch his fights. You know what I mean? Or if you watch him hit pads, you're like,
crazy.
Wow.
It's crazy. And he's so strong. Like, he's so strong, and he's so, like... He's not even, like, the best grappler in that division, though. Like, there's better grapplers.
Technique-wise, yeah, there's way better.
Didn't he say he learned the twister on, like, YouTube or something?
I don't know. I don't follow his stuff, but I do follow him on Instagram because it's so funny. He'll just be
he's hilarious,
doing like farm work and shit and hitting mitts in the dirt. Like, I'm like, this guy's real.
He's a real,
really who he says he is.
Yeah, that's really how he is. It's hilarious. It's so funny though. Like, I feel like that's why he's had so much success. Just from his personality. It's because he's funny and he's just himself, and he just does not care what people think about him. It's great.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. The big thing is that he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about the fucking lights and what people think, and the performance. And that he's just out there fighting. Yeah, and a lot of times that's just what it takes.
Exactly.
But
yeah, it's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I've known who Bryce is for quite some time because he's from Arkansas. I'm from Missouri, so I knew who he was back in the amateur circuits and stuff. And I've always thought, like, man, how does this guy still winning? He just never stopped winning. I'm like, how? Like, I've seen him fight, and I'm like, God, that guy kind of sucks. How? I don't get it, but he's still going, huh?
He's still going in his camo shorts. He sure is.
Yeah, camo shorts now. That's appropriate.
What do you think about Aljamain at featherweight now?
Aljamain's a real contender at featherweight. That's another one. I mean, yeah, training with him, I'm a fan first. So, like, before him and I even trained and hearing about him going up to featherweight, I was like, I don't know, man. But after training with him and also training with other top guys, I'm like, okay, this guy's going to be tough to deal with. His grappling is really amazing. His size, like, I don't know how the hell he made 35 because he's a good size 45.
Yeah.
And he uses his athletic ability on the outside to not get hurt and not get beat up or anything, and then he's able to close the distance and do his thing, do his wrestling, do his jiu-jitsu. And one thing I've noticed that guys do is try to, like, hang on to stuff, and they just wear themselves out and just try and punch and, like, they're just killing themselves, and he's just very methodical about using his energy and when to give up positions and when to try to take positions. And yeah, he's definitely going to be making a run for the title, I think, at 45. I could definitely see him becoming champion one day, just based off of the different matchups. Like, if Topuria could keep Holloway off and Aljo could get to Topuria, I could see him getting there and out-grappling Topuria for sure.
I agree.
I think Max is a little tougher to out-grapple because he's so big, but
I don't think Max is ever going to fight at featherweight again if he beats Topuria, in my opinion.
I could be wrong.
Happen. I could be wrong, but if he beats Topuria, depending on who's champion at lightweight, I wouldn't be opposed to him getting a lightweight title shot immediately. Up. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he knocked out Justin Gaethje. Like, that's
right. He just beat Gaethje. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in not that Gaethje's never been finished before. It's not like he's this unbeatable guy, but you know, he not only knocked him out, but he won the entire fight up until like the last, what was it, like 1 second. And knocked him out. Like, he dominated that fight. So, you know, it's hard to really bet against Max Holloway at this point, even at 155. I think that there are some good matchups for him there too. So, I don't know. It'll be interesting. But yeah, Holloway is a problem, I think, for anyone at 145. I don't see anybody. I mean, at this point, if he rematched Volkanovski, I think Holloway would probably finish him in a 5-round fight.
I don't know. It's tough to say because I thought that was going to happen the first 3 times.
No.
It just never did.
No, I think Max is just like the way that he fights is not really designed for like knockouts. It's like if he had more rounds, like if Holloway had like 1 or 2 more rounds in all of his fights, he'd probably have all knockouts. But like his style is so like, it's kind of like Sean Strickland. Like, it's very like he's throwing a lot of volume and he's defending very well, but he's not putting out too much output. Like, he's not like, he doesn't throw a ton of kicks. Like, he throws some when necessary, and he uses them very strategically. But for the most part, he's throwing 1s and 2s and you know, he's just landing a lot of volume, accumulating damage over time, which is honestly probably worse for your brain than getting knocked out. But just getting dominated by Max Holloway for 5 rounds, yeah, it can't be good for your brain. But yeah, I mean, look at the Cater fight too. Like, that was just destruction. So
yeah, I mean, well, a lot of his early come up fights were like TKOs, like what you're saying. Like, it was like there's so much volume, then they would break, and then he would get the finish. It wasn't. He doesn't really have like highlight reel like one punch shots.
No, not at this level. I mean, yeah, on the regional circuit, on even early in the UFC, yeah, he could knock out probably anybody in front of him. But in the top 15, yeah, there's a lot of guys in that division too that just have a really good chin. I've noticed, like, Emmett and Cater and all those guys, they have a chin. Yeah. So
yeah, they're crazy. Very tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like that division is probably that's probably one division where I've noticed that the fighters are a little bit harder to finish. A little bit harder. Just, they're good everywhere, at least in some way. Like, like, look at Calvin Cater. He's not a grappler at all. I think he's like a blue belt. And him versus Aljamain, like, he didn't get finished. He knew enough to survive, basically. Right. So, like, even though he's not a grappler, even though, like, yeah, in a straight grappling match, Aljamain would destroy him. But in MMA, he's figured out how to do enough to where, he's not going to get submitted by all these guys over and over again. And I think that's, kind of all you have to do. You have to be really good at one area, and then you have to still understand the other areas well enough to where you can defend in where you're at a disadvantage, be able to at least not get finished. I didn't think he was going to win that fight, but I was expecting him to possibly get submitted, and he survived. So, I mean,
yeah, I mean, I think it's tough to have like so much time to be able to be super skilled
Yeah.
in like multiple areas. So like obviously you're gonna have your strength in kind of one area, whatever your like background is, so to speak. But yeah, the sport's so evolved. You have to be um, at least competent enough in whatever other areas that aren't your like strength, then to not get finished by guys where that is their strength.
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like that's something that kind of makes you dangerous going into this division is like, you know, you're good on the ground, you can wrestle, you can strike, like you have all these different areas. Do you feel like that kind of sets you apart from the other 145ers?
Yeah, I think that I have a path to victory with everyone. That's where that advantage lies. I think that my striking is pretty solid, compared with most people. But like with anyone who's going to give me a challenge there, and it's like I'll probably have a grappling advantage with them. But anyone that's like a super high level grappler, then I'm gonna have a huge advantage in the striking. So, it's just about really just fighting smart fights, and using my athletic ability to dictate where that fight will go, and really just honing in on the game plan. That's another big thing with this fight is just sticking to the game plan. We got a couple of plans for me to go to, and I think if I stay within that, then I just don't see um, anything too bad happening. Like obviously you could always get caught with 4 ounces and the bare shins and stuff, but outside of that, I just don't see um, the game plan going too south.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. How important is that as a fighter to be able to follow a game plan? Because I know there's fighters that like sometimes don't even have anybody in their corner, or like it's just like their, wife or something. Like I've seen that all the time, and like they just don't, like Mike Perry. He's kind of one of those guys, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But at the level you're competing at and in the UFC, do you think that's a skill that or an ability, I guess, that you have to just be able to follow a game plan?
Um, I mean, some guys are just raw talent and they have a lot of technique, and they can kind of get away with not so much having a game plan and going out there and just fighting. But I think to win at the highest level, you have to have a game A, B, and C game plan. If
Yeah.
each one goes wrong, and then little subsections within that game plan. I think that all the details are important, and you can find stuff within film work, and studying people. You can find a lot of tendencies that like I said, you can have subsections within your game plan of what you're going to do, and throughout a 15-minute fight, it's going to go by so fast that all you did was just work your game plan.
I wanted to ask you who you think in the UFC has the best grappling.
Ooh.
Or I guess we'll say the best MMA grappling.
Best
That's a better
MMA
question.
grappling, I would say, is Patchy Mix, but he's in Bellator. But for UFC, I don't know, man. That's really tough. Like personally, hands on, I feel like Jordan Levitt is really good. But Chase Hooper did a really good job grappling him, so obviously his grappling's super high level.
Yeah, Chase is going to be a problem. I was expecting him to win that fight against Borshev, but like I wasn't expecting that. That was crazy.
Yeah, I mean his grappling has always been really good, and but there was a lot of holes in his striking that were like so bad. It was like, oh man, I wonder if this kid will ever come together. But
yeah,
he's looked really good in his last fight. But
yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. It's tough to say. Best grappling. I mean, maybe Figueiredo. Figueiredo had a really great performance against my boy Cody
yes.
Garbrandt. He's really good. He's solid. I'm trying not to leave anybody out that I know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, and it was funny going into that fight with Cody. Like I was talking to people about it, and a lot of people thought Cody had the better grappling with his wrestling. Which obviously Cody has got great wrestling, but I was just like, have y'all never watched Big? Like, Like Fig's grappling is crazy good.
Well, I mean,
Crazy
I could
good.
see. I thought it was gonna cancel it out just because it's hard for
Yep.
jiu-jitsu guys to beat wrestlers and like, get
Yeah.
under them and really get a hold of them. I knew it could be an issue if he got a hold of them, but I thought that Cody was just gonna outbox him and be able to keep the
That's what
distance.
I thought
but,
too.
But he did in the first round, and then it didn't go that way. So, and that's kind of the sport.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. I expected Fig to be the one to initiate the grappling because I figured that Cody might have a slight edge in the striking just with his power and his speed. His hands are so fast. But yeah, that was crazy, and that was the first fight at UFC 300. So I got to watch that one like in the arena, but from far away. But it's all good. They got me close up at St. Louis, so yeah, I know, on the early prelims, and there was like hardly anybody in there. Like,
that's wild.
I mean, there was people in there, but like, if you compare UFC St. Louis to UFC 300, there were more people in the stadium for the prelims at UFC St. Louis than there were at 300, in my opinion. Like, the crowd was way
that's
louder.
kind of Vegas, though. People are just going to show up to the main card and then go. We're like St. Louis, there's nothing going on. So people are going to be at the Cardinals fucking, whatever it's called, batting practice.
They've been drunk since like 11 a.m.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know. That's kind of a factor, too. But yeah. But Charles also kicked off that card as well. He was the second fight, and he's got a huge following in St. Louis.
Yeah,
and,
that was dope.
Everyone loves him, and that was really cool to see him go out and do well as well. So, yeah. Yeah,
that was one of my favorite performances from him. I mean, he just looked so technical. I mean, the first round, he kind of got off to a slow start, but once he got into his groove, he looked great. He was flowing. So,
well, I'm sure like watching it in person, it's a little different, but like whenever you're watching on TV, for me, like I could see, and obviously I've trained with him a lot, so like I could see like the first round, it took him a minute to kind of get going, like with his volume, but it looked like Hadley couldn't touch him, he couldn't take him down, he couldn't do anything. Like Charles was kind of playing with him and just getting himself comfortable, and also kind of just like bringing the pace to Hadley, like letting him kind of slow down and then start working his own groove. But I think it was the best performance that he's had in the UFC, and now that he's gotten a couple of camps behind him. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And now he's on a win streak, and they have not given him any favors since he's been in the UFC. Obviously, his debut against Makayev, and then he fought O'Day on short notice. Whenever O'Day was coming down from 35, he fought him at 130. Like, those are tough fights, and it could have went the other way, I think, and Cody Durden as well. I think that he could beat any one of those three guys, on any given night. It was just, that's kind of what happens in the top 10, those top 10 kind of performances. But now it seems like he's really starting to get comfortable in there, and I think that his best performances are to come for sure. Yeah, it's crazy. It's really cool to see just like all these guys from St. Louis fighting in the UFC, and we have more on the way. I mean, you're from St. Louis. I mean, I know you don't live there anymore, but like you're from there, very much a St. Louisan. So, it's cool. It's really cool, and that would be really awesome if they came back and we had another card there with like some new guys in the UFC. Yeah, I think that would be awesome. Yeah, for sure. That would be really cool. Yeah, and I mean, hopefully by that time, there would be room for a guy like Charles on the main card, and like obviously Sean is on the main card against Caceres, so maybe those guys would be able to like main event, a card like that. That'd be really cool. But definitely. The stars would have to align, and there's a lot of guys up and coming out of there, and I think only Sean Woodson's the only guy that really still trains in St. Louis. Buckley is back, so he's training in St. Louis again now, but he hasn't been, I don't think, since he's been in the UFC, or at least not in a while. So Buckley's not in Michigan anymore with Murcielago? No, he had the baby, so I think that's why he moved back down here. Oh, so he's back in St. Louis. Okay. Mm-hmm. Where does he train at? Finney's. At Finney's? No, well, he trains at Finney's, and he trains at St. Louis Boxing Academy, and he trains at a few places. So okay, he just kind of runs around, trains with everybody. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Be interesting.
yeah, that's interesting. I mean, he's always been a really good athlete, and you know, he can kind of make that work for himself. Um,
Yeah.
but he's really close to the title, so you know,
Yeah.
you got to hope that he's got some good people that are really close to him that can help guide him the right way, because that's seems to be a super important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because he's like right there. I mean, probably 1 or 2 more wins, and he could be looking at a title shot, especially with how he promotes himself and markets himself. I think that helps him a lot. And, you know, and that's something that you're good at too. I mean, I see you all the time. You're doing media, and even when you're not fighting, even when you don't have a fight announced, you know, you're promoting yourself and marketing yourself and trying to find ways to keep eyeballs on you. So it's important. And Buckley's doing a great job of kind of leading by example on that and showing these other fighters, you know, like, hey, you can get these opportunities if you put yourself out there. Like he was right behind me at 300 whenever I was on the mic. And then I look behind me and I'm like, what is he about to do? And then he gets on the mic. I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, this guy's crazy.
Yeah, if he wouldn't
but
have done
it
that,
works.
he might not have got the fight. You know, he might not have got the
Exactly.
fight in St. Louis if he didn't do that. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is very, very important to do things like that, and he has definitely leaned into that super heavily. And so, you know, even like the beef with DC and you know, him talking like with the post with Cub Swanson and all that stuff, like it's all. I think all of that is really, really cool. It's really good, and it's cool to see because I can remember, you know, him back in amateur days, and you know, like Charles back in amateur days. I was actually just telling this story to one of my buddies. I can remember whenever Charles lost an amateur title to a guy named Fierce Taylor. He got TKO'd, and I can remember because him and I were training a lot at the time, and he's always been a super hard worker, like very dedicated to the sport, very does everything the right way. And you know, he lost, and obviously he was disappointed, and he kind of got caught. Like they probably could have let it keep going, but it was amateur, so you know they stopped things early and stuff. And so who knows how it would have played out. But and Fierce was always a like really highly touted amateur, and probably could have been a really great pro. I'm not sure if he's still going or not. But I can remember Charles, like the look on Charles's face, like after he lost, and I just knew, like from that point, I was like, oh man, it's not over. Like this dude is going to take this to a whole nother level, and you almost have seen that in his game every time that he's had a loss, where he's just upped his game so much more. So yeah, I think the sky's the limit for that guy too. I could definitely see Charles being champion one day, and yeah, it's cool to see the surge of all the St. Louis guys because. You know, Buckley is maybe one fight away from the title as well. You know, if he gets the right matchup, that could definitely happen.
Yeah, if he gets Usman, I mean, if he can beat Usman, yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't get a title shot. Especially, I mean, it's not a super stacked division right now. It's just really not.
Yeah,
I mean, not as much as it used to be. It used to be a lot more stacked.
I mean, there's some talent in there, but right now it's a little bit stagnant. But with the way
I think it's just a lot of guys that are kind of like on their way out a little bit. Like, you know, like at the time, like, you know, Burns used to be a guy that like you weren't going to beat Burns. Like you're not like Burns is on a different level. And like same with Usman and same with, you know, even Bilal. Like, you know, he gets a lot of hate because he's all of his decisions, but he's a very dangerous guy and very good fighter. And like all those guys. But some of them, you know, like Burns, you know, I think the title reign for Burns is probably out of the question at this point. I think that Usman, you know, I think would probably maybe even have more success if he just moved up in weight, just because like his body seems very worn down. And I think that's a lot of it. I think a lot of it is just things that happen when you get older. Like, your body breaks down. You have kids. You have a family. You have all this stuff you got to worry about. You got a mortgage. Like you got like it's just getting older sucks, and yeah, that's what happens. It's a young man's sport.
It's the division is full of guys kind of on their way out that are big names, and a lot of guys that are coming in that are unproven. So you know, it's a very interesting division, but yeah, you know, it's not like the who's who list of, you know, of some of the times in that division.
Right. So I asked you who is the best grappler, And then I also wanted to ask you, who do you think has the best striking in the UFC? And you can even divide that in two categories. You can divide that into like boxing, and you can divide that in kickboxing if you want.
I generally just say Israel Adesanya right now.
Yeah.
You know, Izzy's very dynamic, and you know, he lost that last fight to Sean, and Sean's even a teammate of mine, but I think that styles make fights. That doesn't make him not the best striker. I think that
I agree.
He's the most fluid technical guy right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say probably either him or... Gosh, I don't even know. I mean, O'Malley's up there. I wouldn't say he's the best, but he's definitely up there.
O'Malley is able to use his attributes. He's able to use his height and his speed really, really well. I don't think he's near as technical as like Izzy and Pereira. Like I don't think that Sean would do as good.
Izzy had a whole kickboxing career
in Glory.
Yeah,
those
exactly.
guys did really, really well in Glory and just high level kickboxing. I don't think Sean. I think he would have success. Don't get me wrong. Like he's not a scrub by any means. Like he's good, but I just don't think he would have the same level of success that those guys had.
Yeah, I agree. I think if it was just pure striking, I think he's found a good niche in MMA to apply his style of striking to MMA, and that's the thing. Like you could be the best kickboxer in MMA, and then you could go to kickboxing and just get smashed, or you could be the best kickboxer and then go to MMA and get smashed. Like they're just yeah,
they're just two different sports. You know, like that's the thing.
Exactly.
And with the bigger gloves, you know, the different defenses, you're able to deflect and move and stuff like that. And then obviously with the rule set, you know, you can do different things. The glove size is a huge, huge thing though. And that's why I always thought Izzy would beat Pereira because of the way he moves. Like he's very movement oriented, and he picks out shots so well from the outside, and he's just a sniper. Where I always thought, like, you know, with the little gloves, it's only going to take a few, but obviously Pereira did such an amazing job in those first fights, just walking them down and cutting them off, and those are always such great fights.
Oh yeah. What do you think is the best space for MMA, or do you think there is one?
That's a good question. I think probably wrestling is the easiest answer.
Yeah.
Because you can control the fight and control where it goes if you had the best wrestling. But I don't know. You see such a strong surge of so many really high-level strikers, boxing, kickboxing guys, where like grappling is so readily available now that you can just kind of figure out how to just defend that as well, and just be one of the most dangerous strikers. So I don't know. If I had to pick one, I would say wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, I think also just having a wrestling background in general. I was just talking about this with another fighter the other day, but like having a wrestling background, it's not only just the style and the technique, but it's also just the training regimen and the discipline that you develop and like cutting weight and all that stuff. And I think that prepares you really well for it, more so than striking, because you can kind of get away with in striking, like not cutting too much weight, because I feel like the weight advantage plays in more with the grappling for sure than it does.
Well,
with
you just
striking.
don't want to cut too much weight in striking, because then you'll be gassed out. So that's why it's not too much of a thing in like boxing and kickboxing. But in the wrestling mentality, just the grind, put your head down and grind mentality is, you know, it just makes you tough, and so that's so important. That can be so important in fighting.
It's a gritty sport.
But I mean, you're gonna get that though if you're really, like I said, like if you have a real true background in something, like if you're a really high level striker, you're gonna have to be fucking tough to do that too. So, you know, it's really just about having like high level competition. You know, having a lot of experience in a high level competition is the biggest thing.
Did you compete in any other martial arts besides? Well, you've probably done some jiu-jitsu stuff. But did you compete in anything else besides MMA?
Yeah, whenever I was a kid, and then whenever I was like still an amateur, I had quite a few boxing, kickboxing,
Oh, okay.
kickboxing matches, and Muay Thai matches, and I wrestled in high school too.
Nice. Okay, so yeah, so you've been competing for a long time.
Yes, I've had a lot of competition time, and yeah, the one thing I wish I had back was I wish I was the Golden Gloves champ. I thought I was gonna win that. That was that one still pisses me off, but
yeah,
yeah, it's all just good. Like that's why whenever I talk to amateurs now, I tell them just compete as much as possible, and just get out there. It doesn't matter wins, losses, just box, kickbox, do jiu-jitsu, wrestle, MMA fights, do it all. Do it all as much as you can against the best people, and then whenever you turn pro, you'll just be smashing people.
Yeah. Do you think some fighters get like too addicted to winning? Or not, I guess maybe not addicted, maybe obsessed is more of a better word, or I don't know. I feel like I've seen it happen to where if they don't win, it's like
everything
the world
falls apart.
ends.
Yeah, I mean, and there's definitely guys like that in the training room too, where it's like they got to try to win every single round, but there's no world titles won in the gym. There's no world titles won.
Right.
It's all about. I think it's all about the journey and trying to evolve and get better. But obviously, winning is the ultimate goal, and you shouldn't really. I don't think you should be fighting unless you're trying to win every fight. That really needs to be where your mind is, or you're going to get hurt really, really bad. But you got to be able to roll with it, especially in MMA, because it's not like boxing where it's a super A side, B side, and the gloves are bigger, so it's not like the knockouts can just happen. Like everything's very unpredictable in there, and guys can have ups and downs in their careers and come out on the other side and be the best people in the world. So I think it is important to really focus on the journey and not get so fixated on it. But it's hard to tell people not to like really step out of that. Like one thing that I learned from being out here, just talking to Mads Burnell and Dennis Davis, they preached all the time. You need to focus on performances, not results, and that is that's grown so true for me because you could go out and have an amazing fight and get caught at the end, and like, what are you going to hate yourself for that? Like, no, you can't. That's the game. That's why we love this sport so much. But if you just go out and consistently put on amazing performances, the fans are going to love you. You're always going to have a job, and you'll be proud of your work. Like you can go out and just skate by and get a win on people and like feel like a bitch on the inside, but if you go out and you put your fucking balls on the cutting board and fight, like you can lose and feel like you feel like you did your best. You went out there and you put it all on the line. So I'm trying to fall into that category myself. And it's hard to even like let your mind go to that place. But I think that's where you're going to create like some of those really memorable performances and amazing fights.
Definitely. I agree. Yeah, it's like a balance of being, focused on winning, but not so focused on winning that if you lose that it's going to like destroy you, because that's another part of fighting is you have to almost look at it like in your career, like if you lose, it can't be the end of the world, because then it's going to affect you mentally into the next fight and the next fight. And so I feel like that's a hard part of fighting too. And not only with losing, but I mean, I've seen fighters look devastated after just having a performance they didn't like, and that's another thing too, is being able to handle that. Like if things don't go to plan, how do you handle that mentally? I feel like that's one part of fighting that is really, really difficult. And I know it's a physical sport, and I know that, at the end of the day, you're fighting, it's a fist fight, but it is very mental in a lot of ways. And I think it's more mental than physical, in my opinion. And
Oh, I would
yeah,
say it's about 90 to 95% mental.
yeah,
It doesn't take too much to get yourself in really great physical shape. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's ways to peak your body and your technique, and create muscle memory for your performances. But that only goes so far. For you to step up, and whenever those lights are on and all the cameras are on you, that's one of the biggest battles of all, in the sport, and being able to just compose yourself and go out and put performances on. That's the toughest part of the sport. So, and there are so many ups and downs outside of, fighting and training within the sport that, you just got to roll with, so to speak. You just got to roll with the punches. So, the mental side is everything in this game. And, you have to really callous your mind, and you really have to callous your beliefs, and know why you're doing this. And, this journey can be the most fulfilling journey. It can be painful, it can suck, and it can be exhausting, and all those things, but it can definitely be one of the most fulfilling journeys. And that's like another cool thing about being out here at Xtreme, is kind of seeing that light at the other side of the tunnel, and seeing other guys that have
yeah.
done super well for themselves in their career. And it just gives me a ton of motivation to go out and put performances on like this. And like go into a fight like this and know, like, he's just a guy that puts his pants on one leg at a time, and it's just at the end of the day, it's just a scrap. Like, I can remember my dad, like, whenever I used to get so in my head about fights whenever I was an amateur and like early pro days, and I can remember my dad would just tell me, it's just a fight, don't worry about it. Because like fights weren't really that big of a deal whenever I was growing up. It was just like, oh, I got into a fight, whatever. And then he'd just tell me, like, it's just a fight. And it's like, whenever I was young, I was like, how could you say that? This is so much different. I'm getting in a cage, and there's all these techniques, and like all this is happening. But like, no, now that I'm older, I kind of see what he's saying. It's just a fight. And, you can't put too much into it. You can't put too much value. You can't measure your self-worth because of what happens in a cage fight. Like, there's so much more to life than this. Obviously, we all want to be world champions. We all want to make millions of dollars and create an incredible life for our family. And that's why I work so hard, so that way I can do that. But at the end of the day, it's just a cage fight, and there's only so much you can give and so much you can do. So it takes a lot of pressure off for me, just going out there
Yeah.
and knowing I'm just going to fight my ass off and try to put amazing performances on, and just do the shit that I do in the gym, and do stuff that I think is really sweet whenever I watch MMA, and things that I like. And I think that good things will happen from that. The results will come.
Absolutely. I love that. I love that mindset. I think that's perfect. I think that's the exact way you should approach it. And then you're also not holding like your whole identity to winning. Like your identity is coming from more of like your effort and your performance and how you're winning and how you're performing in there, and the caliber of your opponents that you're facing. I think those are the more important things to focus on. So I think that's great. That's perfect.
Well, for me,
With
my
no pressure, it's like there's less. I don't know. To me, when I'm like under a lot of pressure, sometimes it can be good, but a lot of times it can like push me in the opposite direction. So it's like, I don't know. I feel like everybody handles pressure differently too.
For sure, for sure. I kind of thrive on that pressure. I kind of enjoy that. But um, for me, the number one thing is being a dad, and like
Yeah.
doing the right thing day by day, and just like, when I say like giving my all, like, that's not just in fighting. That's just in like so many different ways, throughout life. That's just like trying to do the best that I can do with what I have in front of me at all times. And that, you know, every day you can choose, to not train your hardest and pick easy rounds and skate by and stuff, or you can really choose to push yourself. So for me, that's kind of like the motto of the whole camp and everything, like following through to this point. That's going to be what creates that performance, not so much as like trying to make a decision that night. That'd be, if we could all just do that, that's what people would do. Like, you would just not prepare for shit and just do what you're going to do. But, that's
Right.
not the way it works. So,
No.
I'm just trying to commit to that every day in every way in my life, and and that's where I'll be at peace, you know, because I've talked to fighters who, you know, never quite like maybe reached their like the pinnacle of the sport and made a bunch of money and stuff, but had really long careers and fought all the guys and stuff, you know, fought everybody. And I've asked them, you know, like, is it worth it? And every one of them have said, yeah, it's worth it, because you know, I went out and I did what I loved. I saw places all over the world. I got to experience things I've never got to experience. I met people I never would have met in any other walk of life. I became this whole new person, and I chased what I loved. It's not about the destination, it's about the journey, like, you know, like I said. And that sounds cliche, but, you know, I've gone to people and asked them, and, you know, I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people, and they still, you know, some of the people I'm talking about still engulf themselves in the game and have now found a way to make a living out of it, you know, whether it's coaching or management or whatever. Like, you know, you never know where the journey is going to take you, especially, but if you're doing it for the love of it, that's where it's really at. And so, you know, I'm doing what I love, and I'm in this really special time period in my life where, you know, I get to really chase this, and I have full support from my sponsors and my family. And, you know, it's a really cool thing. It's a really cool thing that I get to do, and I'm definitely not taking it for granted. And, you know, I'm looking to make the most out of this moment and parlay this into the next stage of my career, the UFC.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm excited for you. Super excited for you. This is a huge opportunity and a huge moment for you. So that's awesome. And it's been cool just to see your career like progress. You know, it's been really awesome. I mean, you've had some ups and downs. You've had some obstacles, not only in your fight career, but just like in your life in general that you've had to overcome. And it's cool to see you just still pushing and still chasing your dreams, man. It's inspiring. So I love it. I love it. I'm glad that I'm glad you're sticking with it. I'm glad that you're sticking to the plan, you know, getting to the UFC. I mean, that's always been your goal. So, you know, I'm glad that you've never wavered from that, because I do think that, you know, that is a real possibility. And I think that, especially with this win, I think would put you there. So that's really cool. But to switch it up a little bit, we'll keep it light to wrap it up, and I'll ask you some questions a little more fun, and then we'll get going. But I'm curious right now, what's on your playlist right now? What are you rocking to? Like at the gym? What's your jam?
If you looked at my YouTube music on the auto plays, you'll definitely see some Mac Miller. Nice. And The Story So Far, and a little bit of Lil Peep, some Kanye West, maybe some Kodak Black, a little Young Dolph. You got a good little mix.
Young Dolph, that's a good one.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Nice. I was just listening to him the other day.
R.I.P.
That's like one of my favorites. Yeah, I know. It's so sad. Yeah, there's in Mac Miller too. Yeah. It sucks. I was devastated when that was one of the worst ones. Because that was my childhood.
He was like early in all the fentanyl overdoses, you know, and he was like, I feel like for people our age generation, you kind of almost like feel like you grew up with him a little bit, because, you know, he was like starting to get popular in high school. Then he got like kind of a little more popular, a little more, and you just seen the evolution of his craft as well as his career. And then he just died way too early. Yeah, because he was
big. I think he was big probably when I was like in middle school or maybe high school, maybe like my freshman year. Might have been when he was like when I was listening to him. But yeah, I remember listening to him. I'm like, this is different. Like, I've never heard anything like this. Like, he just had his own style. It was really cool and seemed like a cool dude. Like, just seemed really chill. So, and of course, like, I don't know these people. I don't know. They could be horrible in real life, but like, he seemed cool. I don't know.
Yeah, but, I think he definitely seemed relatable. That's why, I feel like our whole generation kind of, he became a megastar, especially after he died.
Everybody loved him. Yeah, that was crazy. And not only that, but like his Tiny Desk performance was really cool too. Like, him kind of just like without all the, like it was very raw. It was very raw and real, and it was cool.
Yeah, so I actually got to see 2 Mac Miller concerts live. One was at the Chaffetz. So It was like a big stadium, and it was It was the Macadelic album, and it was like a bunch of people. There was like a pit, and it was like the whole stadium, and it was like him jumping on the stage, and it was just like a rap concert, like him just like screaming lyrics into the microphone. You couldn't really hear much, but I was into the music, so it was cool. But then the
Yeah.
next year, whenever he came out with watching movies with the sound off, I saw him at the pageant in St. Louis. And so, it's only
Nice.
like 1,000 people. It was much more intimate and like really, really small. We're probably like 20, 30 feet from Mac. And he actually played his whole tour, watching movies with the Sound Off tour, was with a band called The Internet, one of Tyler the Creator's bands.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that Tiny Desk concert vibe. And he ended up making a live album from that tour, and it was so cool. That was way, way
I don't
cooler
know how I
than
missed that.
yeah, it
I'm
was
kind of
way
mad.
cooler than like the stadium rap show. It was like that, like exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about. It was like seeing basically that Tiny Desk concert live for like 2 hours, and he was playing all different instruments and like playing the guitar behind his head and stuff like that. Like it was
That's
really
dope.
awesome. That was a really cool experience.
That's super dope. Yeah, the pageant's a great place to watch music. I've
Yeah.
had a lot of good memories there. It's a good place. Next question. If you let me see. Let me think how I'm gonna word this question. Okay. So which fighter, and they could be retired, they could be in the UFC, they could be whatever. Which fighter do you think would do the best? Like, who's the best in like a street fight? Like just a straight up street fight.
Brock Lesnar. It's not even hard. Brock Lesnar is the ultimate dude. Him or John.
Yeah.
Just John could just throw his eye pokes out, but like make it an actual technique, and then he could just be like flicking teeps like at someone's nuts or something and taking them down. Like that could be dangerous. But Brock just running full speed at somebody at like 300 pounds, that's
true.
dangerous.
That's true. I guess it depends on how big the person is that he's fighting. But that's funny. I was curious what your answer would be. That's awesome. Yeah,
What's
Brock.
yours?
I saw him at the weigh-ins in St. Louis. I didn't even
Oh,
realize
Brock was in St. Louis.
Yeah, because I was there and I saw him, and it wasn't until I was on my way out that I realized he was sitting there. He was sitting there the whole time. There was a lot going on.
He's like a human gorilla. How did you not notice that guy?
I don't know. He was sitting down, so
Oh,
it's kind of like
normal, yeah.
Yeah. And then I started walking away, and then I saw him, and I was like, "Oh, he's been sitting there the whole time." I was like, "Wow." Like, that's one person that I probably would be like scared to go up and talk to, because he's just so intimidating. Like, he's probably really nice, but like if I saw him, I'd be like, "Hi." Like,
you're like, "Hi, I'm Brio. I have an MMA show." He's just like, Brock smash, poof, right on top of your head.
Yeah, he's a scary guy. That was like seeing like Pereira in person was crazy. Like
Really?
being like pretty close to him, because after the media day, like they kind of do like pictures and stuff. So they'll like stand up and he'll hold the belt and you can go up and take pictures like pretty close. And he's like got a very intimidating aura about him, but he also seems like, obviously he doesn't speak English, so I haven't really, heard much like conversation with him directly, but seems like a really nice guy though, and seems like, I know he said he's probably not going to learn English, because they asked him at the media day and he said no. He just you just said no. He didn't even explain. He just said no. And so I don't think he really cares about learning English, and I don't think he needs to. Like, I really don't. I think he's created enough star power without it that like it doesn't matter. It just would be really cool to like, I guess I have to learn Portuguese or listen to his translator, but it would just be really cool to like learn his story and hear it from him. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, that would be really cool. It's got to be a wild one, but
oh yeah.
Yeah, like you said, he doesn't need to.
No. He's so entertaining without saying anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, it almost adds to it.
It's really cool.
Like the mysteriousness of him,
Yeah, definitely. Okay, last question. if you could have like a guy's night out and you could pick 3 UFC fighters to bring with you, who would you bring with you, and what would you guys do? Where would you go?
Probably be my boy Juan Camilo Ronderos, John Jones, and who else seems like fun? Izzy would probably be fun, but I don't know if we could keep John and Izzy from scrapping. If we got too lit up, they'd probably just start fighting in the club, and then, I'm not breaking that up. Me and Juan are definitely not breaking that up, and security probably gonna have a hard time. So I don't know. That seems like a fun time though. I don't know what we'd do. We would go get some drinks somewhere, have some fun.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many characters in the UFC. Like, I can't imagine what they get into.
Wait, I want to trade out Izzy for Connor, and we're gonna go on Connor's yacht.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Now we're talking.
Me, John, Juan Camilo, and Connor on Connor's yacht.
Yeah.
And just Connor and John telling us stories.
Okay, there's a good last question. I'll change my mind. I'll give you one more. Okay. Who do you think in Connor versus Chandler? Who do you think wins that fight?
I think if Connor brings a fraction of his old self into this fight, I think that he snipes Chandler. No problem. I think Connor wins that fight, but I don't know if we're going to see that. I don't know if we're going to be able to see any of the old Connor. I don't know if he's going to be able to come back from this injury. Who knows what his training camp's looking like? It's a tough go. So, my mind says Chandler, my heart says Connor. So I'm gonna pick Connor for the record, but I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like Chandler should win, but it's like you just never know.
You never know. You never really know.
Like,
in this game.
Connor could just be trolling us too and making us think that like he hasn't been trained. I mean, I don't think he has, but like he could just be trolling, and he's really good at that. He's very good at playing mind games, and that's a lot of what he does. So I don't know, but I think no matter what happens, I think Chandler's going to win the first round. That's what I think. I think
that Connor's best chance is to win early. I think Connor's best chance is to win in those first
that's what scares me.
3-4 minutes. And then if it gets outside of that first round, I don't see it really going well for him. But that fight's a toss up now, because you just don't know what version of Connor you're going to see is really the main thing.
Yeah.
No one does.
Exactly. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. And Chandler, he's fought a lot of, pretty big names now. So it's not like he's never fought a big name. So I don't know how much Connor's going to be able to really intimidate him with that aspect. He's able to do a lot of times with his opponents. Like, I don't know. I think that it is different, though. Like, fighting Connor is just a different experience than fighting anybody else just because he's Connor.
Well, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that come with, that outside of the cage. Yeah. That's going to pull him away from things. But, I think that you can't sleep on Connor's skill, and that's why he got to where he was. It wasn't any of the intimidation. It wasn't any of that. He is, he's a deadly, deadly striker. And like I said, if he can pull that out against a guy like Chandler who likes to brawl, we could see Connor making another run for the title. But
that's the thing. He's got such good counters, and that's what worries me with Chandler being, he gets a little reckless.
Fighter.
Yeah. And it doesn't match like what you would expect from him looking at his background. Like, you wouldn't expect him to fight like that, but he does.
Yeah, but Chandler's a smart guy, and he knows that's what's going to get him paid. He's not, he's not going to go in there and just wrestle. Yeah, exactly. It's worked. Now look at him. He's had, 5 or 6 fights in the UFC, and all of them are huge. They're all huge fights. So, you know.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it, man. It's been a great conversation. Been great catching up with you. I'll give you the floor so you can plug any of your sponsors and give your final thoughts on the fight.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, by the way, too.
Of course.
So Next fight, June 21st, main event on UFC Fight Pass. Follow me on Instagram at Augie MMA to keep up with the camp and any updates, all that good stuff. Got to thank all my sponsors: Total Roofing St. Louis, Big A's Seamless Gutters, Reset St. Louis, Golden Toad, Tattoo St. Louis, Two Car Guys, Elliott Co. Barbershop, and the newest addition, Latitude Dispensary. So many awesome companies that I'm aligned with. I'll have all their links in my bio, so if you're interested in any of those companies or any of that stuff, sounds like something you need. I pretty much got you covered in every area, from a barber to a dispensary to a construction company to a place where you can buy sweet, Bapes and Supreme and Jordans and shit like that. So yeah, hit the Instagram, go follow all those guys, and keep up to date with all their good stuff. They keep this journey alive, and they do really awesome work. I'm really happy to be aligned with such cool companies, and thanks again for having me on, Bree. This is a huge fight, and whenever I get that UFC contract, we'll be doing it again.
Absolutely. Hopefully one day I'll be able to interview you at the UFC. That'd be sweet.
Yes.
We'll manifest it. We'll manifest
at the Sphere this year.
Yeah, let's go. I like it. I like the confidence. All right.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited for you. And like I said, it's been really cool watching your career. It's a huge opportunity for you, like I said. So super excited, and it's been great chatting with you. So I will talk to you again soon, and I'll be tuning into your fight.
Awesome. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, guys.